أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألف لام ميم تلك آيات الكتاب الحكيم هدى ورحمة للمحسنين. We have spoken about the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we've spoken about the love for parents. And the next part to this, after praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sending peace and blessings upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we would like to discuss how we can instill in our children this love for our parents, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for other people, and for this great religion of Islam. We spoke about the different qualities and the different types of love that we have for each other. And in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about these qualities that we need to instill in our children. Especially now with the level of fitna, temptation, corruption and difficulties that we face in the modern world. We need to keep reminding our children about Islam and about doing good and forbidding evil. We need to keep nagging them, and we need to keep at it, because they're children, and it's not that we tell them once or twice and they're going to carry your advice through. No, we have to keep at it, keep going. Children these days have, unfortunately, a sort of an attitude where they feel that they are very privileged, and they have a sense of entitlement. And some of that is obviously our fault, because as parents we try to give them those things that perhaps we didn't have, which is understandable. But if you look at the seerah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was 17 years old, 18 years old, he was a shepherd, and the Anbiya were shepherds. And there's a reason for this, because being a shepherd is an extremely difficult task. It's an extremely difficult job. And it teaches you many things. It teaches you leadership. It teaches you patience. It helps you to go through these hardships. And it helps you to build your character. So therefore, it's a great hikmah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He made these prophets shepherds before they were then given the task of prophethood. So it was almost like the character and the strength of the person was being formulated before they were to take on this great task of prophethood. So in the same way, if we're going to just give our kids the latest iPhone and the latest iPad and the latest game and the latest this and that, without them really putting any work into it, they will start to have this feeling of just privilege, entitlement. I'm going to ask for it and mommy and daddy will provide for it. And this creates a very sort of, lack of hard work. People who become lazy, there's no hard work involved, they're not really wanting to work to earn a living or to earn, the things that they need in life. They just think it should just be there. And parents are at great fault when it comes to this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions a beautiful story in the Quran. He mentions a story of Luqman al-Hakim. The scholars are in general agreement that Luqman was not a prophet, but he was a man that was honored in the Quran. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him wisdom. So he's known as Luqman al-Hakim. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has immortalized this beautiful story in the Quran to the end of time. And he has honored this man, Luqman, to the end of time. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him this wisdom and gave him this honor because he was a man of thankfulness. And he cared for his son. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a blueprint in terms of how we need to advise and bring up our children in this society. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins these verses, as I recited, that He says that this book, i.e. the Quran, is a book of wisdom and a book of guidance. And it's a mercy for those who do good. So He gave Luqman wisdom, and Allah mentions his gratefulness. So this is the advice this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying to Luqman about being grateful. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا لُقْمَانَ لِلْحِكْمَةَ أَنِشْكُرْ لِلَّهِ. So, and certainly we gave wisdom to Luqman, saying, be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and whoever is grateful, he is only grateful for his own soul. And who is ungrateful, then surely Allah is self-sufficient, praised. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also in the Quran mentions in Surah Ibrahim, لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. I will give you more if you are grateful. So this is the advice, or the general advice that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to Luqman. However, by extension, this is also the advice that we would give to our children as well. But more specifically, what does Luqman al-Hakim tell his son? There are 7 lessons here, or 7 pieces of advice that Luqman gives to his son. The first one is regarding Aqidah, our belief system. He advises him to avoid shirk, i.e. associating partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. La tushrik billah. So he's advising him that, O son, do not associate anything with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because this is the worst crime that anybody can commit. Alhamdulillah, we find that the majority of the Muslim Ummah, or possibly the Muslim Ummah as a whole, are protected from idol worship and things like these. But there's more to it than that. That's major shirk. But there is also minor shirk as well. Minor shirk is where we associate other things, or we prioritize other things. So we don't worship anyone else but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we are a slave to our own desires. We're a slave to perhaps wealth, slave to, there are lots of ills that we see in society today, and our children are exposed to these things. They can be slaves to things like pornography, which is a huge issue. And this is a form of minor shirk, because you are enslaved by your lowly desires, and you have forgotten the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you may not commit idol worship, but you're certainly committing harm to yourselves, because you are prioritizing your lowly desires over the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second thing that Luqman advises his son, he advises him that be good to your parents. And we've spoken about this a few weeks ago. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions first and foremost the mother, the fact that she bore the difficulties while she was pregnant, and then she breastfed the child, and the difficulties that she goes through with during pregnancy and after pregnancy. The Prophet ﷺ has, when he was advising a companion, he mentioned taking care of the mother 3 times before he then said for the 4th time, he said, your father. I.e., your mother has a right over you, a right over you, a right over you, and then your father. But moreover, we have to teach our children that we need to have good relationship with other members of the family as well. You know, your aunties and uncles, even if you don't like them. Family feuds and things like these happen. But we can't let children get in between these relationships. So we need to teach them also going forward what the rights are of being a husband or being a wife. The third thing, Luqman teaches his son about spirituality. He teaches his son about knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The ayah talks about the fact that if there was a mustard seed in a rock or in a high place, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can still bring it to light. What does this mean? This means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the knower of any subtleties. He is the most aware. And this is something that we should instill and ingrain in our children, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching over you at all times, and He is aware of everything that we are doing. A personal experience of mine is when I was a very young boy, my parents used to often tell us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is everywhere. And what they meant by that was not physically, but what they meant by that was that He's watching over you, no matter where you are, whether you are upstairs in your room, whether you are on your own somewhere else, whether you are outside with your friends, wherever you may be, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is aware of what you are doing. He is the all knowledgeable. He has power over all things. He is the all seer, the all knowing. And this you have to install or instill into your children so they become God conscious. The taqwa will increase. If they don't have God consciousness, if they don't know that Allah is watching them and has this ability, then their God consciousness will not be strong. They will then do things, they will hide things. You know, it's all well and good giving them a iPad and a computer and the phone. But the worst thing you can do then is to tell them to go and watch this in another room. Yes, we want them to be responsible and we want to give them this form of trust. But at the same time, you need to instill in them that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching. And if they know that, then they will have this awareness and this fear that I'm going to be accountable. They'll always know that Allah is watching. They'll always know that they're going to be accountable for what they're doing. So whether they are alone in their room, whether they are alone with their friends, whatever it might be. So we need to instill this in young children so that they're aware that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala He has this, his ability. This is the sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He's all knowing. He knows what is going on. The fourth thing is about the prayer. The first thing that we are going to be questioned about on the Day of Judgment is going to be the prayer. He says, "O my son, keep up prayer and enjoin the good and forbid the evil." So even if we have to nag our children, so by the time that the child is 10 years old, they should be praying on a regular basis. And if it means that we have to nag them, then nag them. Okay? They probably won't appreciate it right now, but they will thank you later, and it becomes a habit. But if it doesn't become a habit at a young age, it's going to be very, very, very difficult to instill that in them at a later time, at a later age. Take them with you when you're doing good deeds. Take them with you when you come to prayer. Watch them pray. Watch them make wudu. Correct them if you need to. Yeah? Bring them with you to the masjid. It's really important. It doesn't matter if they are shouting and screaming and running around. It's fine. Nothing makes me more happy than children running around in the mosque. It's the best thing. Bring them so they have this attachment to the masjid and to prayer. The fifth thing is to command what is right and forbid wrong. Dawah, invitation towards the deen or towards good, is a sunnah of the prophets. And it's something that we should also take upon ourselves as well. So get your children involved in the masjid. Get them involved in community projects. Lead by example. And encourage them to stand up for good and evil, despite the criticism. And this is another thing that I think young children, young people today find very difficult to take, is criticism. And it goes back to this feeling of entitlement and privilege, that they know it all, and we can't criticize them. They find that very difficult to take. But we need to instill in them. So even if you have a child at school and he or she sees something wrong, whether they've seen someone saying something nasty to somebody else or bullying someone, they need to speak up. So they get in this habit of not turning a blind eye towards things that are wrong. The sixth thing that Luqman al-Hakim teaches his son is to bear patience with steadfastness despite the hardship, and you keep your intention pure for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you make them understand, you make your children understand that, look, life doesn't always go according to plan. It doesn't go according to how you want it. Allah knows best. He's the best of planners. He knows best. You might like a thing that's not good for you. You may hate a thing that might be good for you. Teach them that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if He does put hardship in your way, it's to purify you. It's to make you into a stronger, better person. And we only have to look at the example of the Prophet ﷺ's life about the hardships. He was the best of creation, the best person, the best human being, and yet he went through the most severe hardships. Teach your children this. Tell them that there will be loss of life in their lives of loved ones. Teach them that there will be loss of wealth. Teach them that there will be a loss of health. Perhaps the exam result didn't go very well. Perhaps they messed up. It's not the end of the world. Teach them this. Bear difficulties with patience. And then the last and final thing is the akhlaq, the manners, the etiquette, the way that we are with other people, the way that we act with other people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala He says, not to become arrogant, not to become conceited like shaitan, because you will be abased, just like shaitan was abased because he thought he was better than Adam. Don't think that you are better than anybody else. And this happens with people who are more affluent or belong to affluent communities. This happens. It happens, and Solihull, mashallah, is an affluent community. But we can't instill in our children that we are better than other people. That will be extremely, extremely wrong. It's a ni'mah, of course, but then you have to use the ni'mah in the right way. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you wealth and health, then you spend it in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It doesn't make you better than anybody else. Teach them to be humble. Don't walk in arrogance. These days you see these kids, they walk with this, attitude, and they think that they own the place. This is not akhlaq. This is not adab. This is not the way that we behave. This is not the way that the Prophet ﷺ would walk. The Prophet's walk was very humble. The walk was such that he had purpose to his walk, but there was a humility in his walk. And lower your voices. Speak nicely. Speak with kindness. Speak with empathy. And these are qualities that you want to instill in your children. And these are the qualities that you would then look for when you want to get your children married. All the other things are on the side. But if that person doesn't have ikhlaq, if he doesn't have good manners with other people, how is he going to treat his wife? Or how is she going to treat her husband if she does not show these good qualities? We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take heed from this beautiful story in the Quran. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect our parents. We ask Allah to increase them and give them long lives, and the parents who have passed away to give them a high rank in Jannah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that our children become beacons of light for this community, and that we take these lessons and we instill them in our children. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد عبدك ورسولك النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. So just to recap, so the first thing we need to encourage our children is about aqeedah, about the fact that we cannot associate anything with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We need to be good to our parents. We need to honor them. We also need to increase our spirituality and the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching over us. This will increase our iman, this will increase our taqwa, this will increase our belief in Allah, this will increase our God consciousness. We will encourage our children to pray. We will pray ourselves and we will bring them to the masjid and we will encourage them, as this is a important pillar of our deen. We will command what is right and what is wrong. Stand up for the haqq, stand up for the truth. And when things are not right, we do need to speak up and we need to stand up without fear. Any difficulties that we come across in life, small or big, we need to bear with patience. And we need to instill in them good manners. We need to speak nicely with people. We need to speak with kindness. We need to speak with empathy. We need to treat people with kindness. We can't become arrogant. We need to treat people equally despite different backgrounds. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all of these lessons to be instilled in ourselves and in our children. اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيمن عافيت وتولنا فيمن توليت وبارك لنا فيما أعطيت وقنا شر ما قضيت إنك تقضي ولا يقضى عليك إنه لا يذل من واليت ولا يعز من عاديت تباركت ربنا وتعاليت لك الحمد على ما قضيت ولك الشكر على ما أعطيت نستغفرك اللهم من جميع الذنوب والخطايا وتوب إليك. عباد الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون وأقيموا الصلاة